So, one of the questions that comes up a lot when I am working with my audience or clients when it comes to offers is how do I make my offer stand out? How do I, as a coach or healer or therapist, like stand out amongst the hundreds of thousands of people out there like me? And although in my aligned offer accelerator, I teach 5 different strategies for differentiating yourself in the marketplace, one of the number one things that I talk about is your stories. Your stories help set you apart. And today I have a very special guest with us, Jessica Graham. Jessica is a brand story strategist for entrepreneurs, nonprofits, and small businesses. Through coaching and consulting, she's known for asking the right questions to dig deep into their experiences, finding the golden thread that clarifies the why behind their business, and helping them articulate a great story that connects with their audience and gives them the confidence to share their message for impact. I love this. When I met Jessica, I was like, we really hit it off. And I was like, I have to have you on because your stories are just like, especially today in the age of AI, where everyone's, content is kind of blending in, like your stories and what makes you unique. And that's like the only thing that we can use to really like set ourselves apart. So why don't we just start, Jessica, since you are a story strategist, why don't you just tell us your story?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, first of all. I'm
Of
very
course.
excited to talk about stories with you. So, my background is coming from international teaching, and it's one of those things that as I walk clients through the process, you kind of start to see like your past experiences in a different lens to why you're doing what you're doing today. So, that's exactly what happened. I had a career as a teacher, got out of teaching, started my first business as a copywriter. And
Okay.
as I was working with my clients in their copy, I was like, to get to the messaging, I really love starting with the story because as soon as we would get to the story piece of everything, I was like, yeah, now I want to go back and kind of refresh and redo the messaging that we had already created because there's so much more to add to it that's got a lot more personality, got a lot more of those personal experiences. And it sheds you're coming from a different angle when you're doing it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And so once I kind of changed my process, I was like, actually, I just really love focusing on the stories, not so much the copy part. So I decided to go full in on this. And it's been wonderful. So as I look back on my life, I see how much stories have really impacted my own journey.
Mm-hmm.
I was a history major. I've always been a nerd about like everybody else's stories. And to me, it just helps me make sense of the world. It helps me make sense of why people do what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I started helping business owners, it's like, let's take that same idea and put this into the lens of like, why are you doing what you're doing through the through your experiences? Because as you said, nothing else can be as standout and unique as your own stories. So that's how
Very
we
true.
ended up
Yeah,
here. Yeah.
it's very true. And people like are, not everybody, but, lots of people are very captivated by people's stories. Like I think about my spouse and, she listens to a ton of podcasts, but all of the podcasts are people sharing their stories. And it's just like all of these random people that are just sharing who they are, what they're all about, like just the story of their life. And if you think about TV and movies and all of that stuff, which most people enjoy. It's all about stories,
Yep,
right?
exactly.
So, what's like the first, when you work with a business, what is like the first story that you, because, I think about stories and I think, oh my God, there's so many kinds of stories that you can tell. What's like the first kind of story that you would work with them on?
I love working with them on their own transformation story. So
Okay.
I think it's important to know your story. Oftentimes, when you start to do this work, you might realize that there's even parts of your business that might not be aligning with everything that you want it to. And I'll back up a little bit. So, with the transformation story, you're really going back through your life and looking at the different pivotal moments that you've had, like turning points, because any kind
Mm-hmm.
of turning point is going to be one filled with some kind of an emotion. And I'm not saying turning points need to be like these crazy rock bottom challenge, focused stories, but oftentimes they will be.
Sure.
Um, but they are just those moments that you have somehow transformed through the experience.
Mm-hmm.
And when you start to kind of sift through what all of those experiences are in your life and narrow down to the one that really draws that like golden thread of where I was and what happened and how am I making an impact today. Once you
Okay.
can draw that out, that's like the story that your audience is really going to resonate with on more of an emotional level in terms of why you're doing what you're doing. And so when you start to really piece together like your why, because I did this even in my own journey of
Mm-hmm.
why am I doing this? What am I really here to help people do? Then
Right.
I realized, like, well, the copywriting isn't really what I want to be helping people do. I want to help people use their voice, own their story and their experiences that they've had, and like realize and understand that there's nothing to really be ashamed of when it comes to our experiences. I think a lot of business owners feel like I have business stories that I'm willing to talk about, and those
Mm-hmm.
tend to be, your client transformation stories
Right.
or what stories really relate to your specific offers, but they're not really willing to like go into their own struggles or their
Mm-hmm.
own turning points. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times those turning points do have an element of struggle or realization or something to it. Um, and I also don't believe you should share everything either, but it's like if you can relate to your audience and really show them the human side of you and that I have gone through this and now let me help you go through it,
Mm-hmm.
it's you're establishing yourself as their guide and a trustworthy guide because we don't really want to work with someone who might be teaching us something that they themselves have not
Have
lived.
not been through.
Mhm.
Exactly. So, I think of all kinds of different people who I've read their stories. Like I've read a story about someone who, kind of hit rock bottom with alcoholism and turned their life around and became sober and became, a coach. And now they're out here helping people. That's part of their story. For some people, that's, like you said, very vulnerable to talk about. So I guess, how do we balance, because some people are I'm very pretty open, I would say, but even I, like, as an open person and a very transparent person, can feel vulnerable, like talking about like my stories. I've gone through lots of different transformations that have shaped me in so many different ways, and let's just face it, the world judges. Like, people judge. And so how do we really step into our truth and into our story and feel confident about sharing it and not fearful of being judged or, what people will think of us because of our story?
I think that this is where like the interpersonal work stuff really comes in, because I don't believe that everything that we have gone through needs to be out there either. There is like, you share obviously what you're comfortable sharing, and what my level of vulnerability is might not match your level of vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes for everybody. So what I would say is, like, my experience was I really learned how to be vulnerable and open because growing up in a house where my parents were very like, let's sweep everything under the rug. We don't talk about what's really going on. So
Mm-hmm.
I learned to like stuff everything down, just stuff, stuff,
Sure.
stuff, and only tell the people who I knew were trusted people. So my
Mm-hmm.
friends were the people that knew what was going on. But eventually all of that stuffing caught up with me, and I was on a really bad path. And
Mm-hmm.
so I went to therapy. The therapist told me you will definitely benefit from going to some Al-Anon 12-step meetings. So I
Mm-hmm.
started going to these meetings, and that was the first time that I saw what I thought was truth telling in a very raw form. And
Mm-hmm.
I was like, wow, this is incredible. The longer that I was there, I still believe that it is truth telling, but what I saw to be the most like magical and powerful part of it is that your story evolves as you heal.
Mm-hmm.
So, people that would go in there at the beginning of their recovery process are coming in with a very different story than
Yes.
what it ends up being after they've been able to like process it and heal through it.
Right.
So, my thing with like showing up online and sharing your story is that I wouldn't share anything that I am still in the midst of like processing, or it makes my, hands sweaty with the thought of like
Mm.
putting this story out there. Like,
Mm-hmm.
listen to your body, listen to your own tuition. Whatever someone else is doing, it doesn't mean that you need to do the same thing. And
Right.
also, like, check in with yourself. What is the intention behind sharing this story? If your intention really is because you feel called to share this message with the
Mm-hmm.
audience, because you really feel like they're going to take something away from this, they need to hear this message, great.
Right.
If it's to shock people and try to like, get some sort of reaction, I would
Right.
say don't. So
Right.
it's kind of that like, know yourself, know what you're comfortable with, but everyone needs to practice. So what that 12-step program really showed me is that the more that you practice, the more that you show up, the more that you start to speak your truth, the easier it becomes.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to start somewhere.
Right.
And I think what a lot of people do is like, they don't know how to start, so then they just don't. And they keep
Right.
it very surface level. So I have some tips that I share with my clients on like how to get started. But again, this is all like such an inner work and such a process to go through.
Right. Right. Yeah. I like what you said about if it makes you sweat and it brings you like a lot of anxiety to share something and you don't feel like you have necessarily come out on the other side of it, then maybe it's not the right time to share for some people. Because, honestly, there are people who, one other thing I wanted to say about that too is sometimes people, like you said, will share for shock value, or they'll share because they're dumping, right, out on social media. And I would say if it's not helpful for your audience, if you cannot take your story and tie it back to who you are, what you do, what you offer, and how it can be beneficial for your audience, there might not be like a need to share it, right?
Yeah, and I would even go as far as like if it doesn't align with your values, because I really believe everything starts with your values and it should end with your values. So as long as you know, and I'm not even saying like what your brand values are, like not, I want to deliver quality work, but like really, what are your core values? What are the things that you value in your life? And if these stories really align with that, then there might be a purpose and an element to like
Mhm.
sharing that story, even if it doesn't necessarily align directly with your offer. I always say that the values should be kind of your measurement tool to decide if something's
Yeah,
shared or not.
that's a really good point. Because one of my values that is super strong to me is inclusivity. So I will occasionally, and not all the time, because I know how the world is, but I will occasionally share that I am gay, right? And that I am married to an amazing woman. And I will use that to showcase like how important inclusivity is to me and how I really value differences in people culturally, religion, like whatever. Like for me, I believe everybody is unique and I believe everybody has their own gifts and I believe everyone has their own like I guess brilliance that they can bring to this world and that we need to try to understand everybody even though they may be different than us. So that's something, and that's really important in my work because that's obviously like what I do with people. It's like help them identify their brilliance, that passion, that expertise that they're really good at, and just completely lean into it, right? Versus kind of being somebody that we are not.
I
um
love that example. I love that example. Because it
yeah,
also like helps you kind of weed out the people who would not be aligned with you to work with.
100%. a hundred
Hmm.
percent yes. And but I will tell you, it is not an easy story to share because
Right.
I know, at least in my country, over half probably of the country is against my marriage or my love or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So it's difficult, but like you said, it does tell you like who I am. And if I can make someone else that might be feeling left out, because of their differences or whatever, like that's good to me. Like
Hmm.
that's important to me. So there's a purpose, behind it as well.
Exactly.
Um so help me understand the difference between, so you talked about the transformation story, and I get that, the like what were those experiences and transformations that you went through in your life that like really shaped you? Like one for me is like when I went to get my certification as a coach. um Life changing. Like I felt called to coaching. I went through that coaching program and it was like life changing for me. It was like one of the most like intense personal development experiences like I've ever been through. So I know that that's part of my transformation. What's the difference between, I guess, your transformation story and your brand story?
I think that the brand story is focused a little more on the transformation that led to the impact that you are making on your audience now. So I kind of summarize that as like your impact story. And your impact really being like, what is my mission?
Mm-hmm.
So chances are there is some type of transformation story that leads you to that impact, but that would be the focus of the brand story. And then those little transformation stories, I always call those like your micro stories, and you're going to have a million different little micro stories that you can share. Um, but transformation stories would be a really great place to start as far as those little micro stories go. Also, any story that really like highlights what your values are, talks more about like the different approach and different lens that you're coming from to deliver the offers that you have, those types of
Mm-hmm.
things.
Right. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about, and I don't know if you help clients with this, but let's talk a little bit about the everyday stories. Just the stories that, like, for instance, yesterday I did a post about a new hobby I've taken up, Lego building, and I'm like obsessed with it right now. I don't have enough money to like just totally lean into the obsession, but I used the process of building Legos and what I've been learning about building Lego sets and how that mirrors like the whole offer creation process, right? And like there's so many lessons like that came out of it. Like how do you help people like do you help people like craft the everyday stories that they can use to kind of showcase like this is who I am. Like, you know, people remember, oh my God, Lori, she builds Lego sets, right? That's not something that every adult does, right?
Right.
Now, maybe if they have little boys or little girls, it might, actually might do it too. But what kind of everyday stories like can we like weave in to help set ourselves, our brand, and like our offers like apart in the world?
I love this example, and I love that you're into Lego building. As a former teacher, that just speaks to my heart. So, I think every experience that we have, like the everyday, ordinary experiences, those can all be used. And if you don't believe that it can be used, look at Laura Belgray. She has like had her whole business built on leveraging those everyday, ordinary, not transformational, crazy big stories, but just the trip to the grocery store stories into her marketing strategy. And that's all she uses, and it works. So, um, yes, I do teach people how to do this. And I think where to start is just to start noticing. Like the more
Mm,
that you're curious and noticing and reflective on your own experiences, the more easy that, or the easier that this will become. I'm a big journaler. So for me,
mm,
taking the morning time to really journal and reflect on how I'm feeling and what's going on in my life, that is an easy practice for me. I
mm-hmm,
understand that not everybody is a journaler. But having a note on your phone, even just to take note of things that have happened, things that you have noticed, podcasts that you listened to that you took a really great message away from it, things
okay.
that sparked you in throughout the day, a conversation that you had with your husband, whatever it is, just keep notes of it.
Mm-hmm,
And when it's time that you want to create a piece of content, and you can do this in two different ways. You can start with the story, and then like you use the word mirror back like how your story kind of reflects your offer or where you're coming from.
mm-hmm,
And you can also like kind of bridge it, so you can take the story and bridge into your offer or whatever you're promoting right now. That's one way of doing it, starting with the story. You can also start with what it is that you are promoting and then kind
mm-hmm,
of work backwards on like can this story fit with this? Like, what would be the takeaway and the point of this story that like leads into this offer or my call to action or whatever it is? And it takes practice. This is like a skill to develop and practice, but I it's doable, and it's like one of the best places to look at people doing this, I think, is on LinkedIn. A lot of people are taking
Yes.
just those kind of everyday experiences, weaving it into what they do, having a call to action at the end. And email marketing is a perfect place to like look at how other people are doing. Sign up to Laura Belgray's like
Laura
news.
Belgray.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
She's a very famous copywriter and copywriting coach. So
Okay.
a lot of people like her style, and she'll teach you how to write emails in the form that she does it with these everyday experiences. But even if you just like sign up to someone's newsletter and just start to see how they do it and try to
Mm-hmm.
model it. um but I always say, like, write out the story from start to finish. Once you have that story written out, always start in the middle. Like, what was the peak part of that story? What was the like attention grabbing, climax of the story? And then put that at the front again. So start with the climax to hook people into what
Mm,
it is that you're going to be sharing,
got it.
and then work it backwards and weave your call to action in. That's um again something to be practiced, but that's a good
Yes.
formula to try.
It definitely is something to be practiced. I just recently launched my aligned offer accelerator, and I really went into it with like, okay, this is a soft launch where I am going to practice like storytelling in every single email that I send out. And it's not easy. Like, it is not easy to weave in stories. Like, it takes, like, I like your idea of like trying to like capture it, like writing something in your notes, or someone I had talked to had said, like, just record a moment, like yesterday, and I don't know that this was a story, but I was just like, I was feeling like really irked about all the people out there that are like AI haters, and they're like, 13 ways to tell if someone's writing with AI. And I'm just like, come on, guys, like, this is 2025. Who is not writing with AI? Like, okay, maybe there are some writers that just refuse, but overall, that's like saying, you know, I don't use the internet. I use encyclopedias, right? And so, like, for me, I was just like, right away, I'm thinking, okay, I've got to write a story about this. I've got to, and like make it funny, and I don't know, like, it's just like everyday things, like even like that kind of a thing, like just everyday things that happens. I think that's what makes, like, for me, like a really good comedian is the
Absolutely.
one that can lean into the everyday stuff that's like, oh my God, like, yes, like, that's so funny, because they're not necessarily things that we talk about because they're just so everyday moments, but they're really funny when you look at it.
And that's what I mean about the curiosity, because what a comedian is doing is they're very observing. So they observe everything that's going on around them, and then they're able to notice that's actually funny. And I don't know if anybody's like taken this into the microscope that I'm going to take it in and get everybody else to notice the same thing. And it's like, it is so relatable when we can do that, because if we've all walked around this earth, then we all
Hmm.
can like share that experience, share that emotion, even if we haven't like we ourselves walked those shoes. Like, you can still watch a movie and love the entirety of it, love the character, love everything about it, and not understand any of
Hmm.
the path that they have walked, but you
Right.
love it because you share an emotion. You share
Yes.
some kind of an emotion with whatever's going on. So I think, like, to your point, making a story about the observations that you've seen with people hating on I love that. And I hope that you do write it. And I hope you tag me in it
Oh,
when
I'm
you
going to write it.
do,
Trust me.
because I want to see it. But yeah, I think that that's great. And like, so many people would relate to that.
Right.
Yeah. And that's what's fun about the stories. I mean, it is a practice. Obviously, I love writing, and so I understand that for people who don't really love writing or they've never put it into a practice, that this can feel kind of daunting and a little scary. I would always just start with what we're talking about, just making those little observations, making a little note about what you have observed, and then trying to carve out maybe 30 minutes to
Hmm.
see if you can develop a story out of it. And that's also where ChatGPT comes in, because, or a voice note, like you said, if you're not much of a writer, but you can speak, get ChatGPT to translate what your voice text is and try to get it to help you formulate a story. Of course, go back and edit it, but
Right.
yeah, get
Right.
the outline of it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Is because I was actually going to ask that question. Like, how do you advise people who do not see themselves as writers at all, um actually, like, start bringing their stories out? And I think that's a really good point. Is just like, okay, well, if you're a speaker, you can still speak your stories, and you can tell your stories in video. You can tell your stories in present workshops and master classes that you might do. You can tell your stories in this format, in a podcast. So even if you don't consider yourself a writer, you can still share stories in so many other different formats.
Exactly. And it's just about like leaning into how you process. So, like I said, I have a journaling practice that I do every morning. So, pen to paper for me is a great way that I process. I process my feelings, I process the observations that I'm making. Some people are more of a verbal processor. I have
Hmm.
moments with that as well. So another practice that I really like is what I call a prayer walk. You can call it whatever you want, but it's literally just walking and talking to yourself and looking
Okay.
like a crazy person. So I do that all the time. And sometimes I want to be able to go back to what it is that I am like verbally processing, or maybe it's something that I have an idea while I'm outside and I am walking. I think that when we have movement, we tend to generate a lot of ideas. Get that voice note app out on your
Hmm.
phone and just record yourself. And the beauty of it now is that the app itself will translate in the app. You don't even have to like put it into
What's the voice
something
app
else.
that you use?
Just on my Apple phone. It's
Oh,
called
okay.
Voice Notes or whatever.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, there's a little translation or transcription
Okay.
button in there now, which is awesome. And then you can just copy and paste whatever that was into ChatGPT and ask it to kind of summarize it for you, whatever it is that you want it to do. But I think that these are all really great practices for people who don't want to have pen to paper, don't have time for it, don't
Hmm.
like writing, period.
Yes. Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I think the biggest takeaway that we're trying to stress is we have to lean into our stories, especially with like I said before, with AI and being in a crowded marketplace where there's so many different coaches, health coaches, leadership coaches, life coaches, all these kind of like, what is going to attract people to you it's not how much information you share. It's not always like your expertise, because information is everywhere. Like anyone can has access to information. It's you. It's your stories. It's your values, like you said, the way that you relate, your thought leadership. Kind of like, part of my thought leadership is like, come on, let's not be, I don't know what the word is, but like, let's just be transparent about the fact that we are all using AI. Like even the best writers are using AI, and it's not like a taboo to use AI. That's my thought leadership. Someone else will completely disagree with me, or continue to hate on AI while they use AI and not be transparent about it, or whatever. But don't be afraid to like stand up for like who you are and what you believe in,
Yeah,
right?
having an
Because
opinion.
that's what makes us different. And yes, you will alienate some people, you will turn some people away, but you will also create people that are raving fans.
I agree. And like to that point too, one of the things that I love, a story that I love to share with people, that your story is allowed to evolve and you are allowed to change your mind about things. And it's
Hmm.
okay if you do that on a public platform. And the two women that I always bring up with this point are Elizabeth Gilbert and Glennon
Hmm.
Doyle. Most people know Elizabeth Gilbert, not everybody
Yep.
knows Glennon Doyle, but both of them have a very similar story, which is funny. But they both changed their mind about something really big after they have published books about those very things, about love, about
Interesting.
heterosexual relationships, about repairing those types of relationships, and then had to kind of backtrack a little bit and then be honest about, you know what, I've changed my mind on all of this, and
Hmm.
here's my new outlook and why. They might have lost fans in that process, but they sure gained a lot of people as well at the same time.
Right.
And they're stepping further into their own authenticity, which the more authentic you really are, the more magnetic you really are. And so it's
Hmm.
going to be a natural force for attracting the right people that you want to. So I always say, like, whatever your story is today, it might not be the same thing tomorrow, and that's completely okay.
Yes.
Um, and I also, to your point too, of like people just want to know more about you. I had a client who is a very well accredited, licensed therapist, and she
Hmm.
started coaching so that she could help more people without like the restrictions.
Right.
And she's been very timid to share a lot of her story. She has a very powerful story, but there's still some parts of it that she's not ready to really be open with. But
Hmm.
she also started practicing these little like micro stories. So she started sharing a little bit more about her archery hobby and her fishing hobby. And those stories ended up getting so much engagement and so
Mm.
much like views, and people really liked them. And she was shocked by that. And I was like, it's because you're showing your human side. Like
Yes.
people love people. And so don't
Yes.
be afraid to share what's really going on and what really you're up to in the day. I know a lot of people kind of hate on the whole, like, we don't care what you're eating for dinner. But it's like, I do. Like, I love seeing what people have made for dinner. And, it doesn't have to be all the time, but
Right.
you're sharing a little bit of your life and giving me a sneak peek behind the veil of your brand name. I love it.
Yes, I agree. And I think, not only does it connect people to us, I think it's what helps build trust.
Right.
When we you talk about like being okay with your story evolving. I mean, oh my gosh, like I've been through like so many different pivots in my business, and oftentimes I'm like, "Oh my god, I look like such a flake." But I've been very transparent, and finally I'm like, I feel like, oh my God, I'm have leaned into my brilliance now. But it was tough, like getting there. And there's a lot of people, honestly. There's a girl on LinkedIn that Lisa Simone Richards, I think is her name. And she is starting a podcast called The Messy Middle. And I just think it's amazing because not enough entrepreneurs talk about like what's really going on behind the scenes, right? Like, what is the messy middle? Like, and for me, when I can read someone's story and see, oh my God, they're in the messy middle, like, oh my God, I have such compassion for you. Like, oh my God, yes, I've been there too. And yes, I'm there right now also. Like, it's like, that is what like it connects us as humans. So we don't have to be picture perfect. As a matter of fact, I think it's harder to trust someone that's picture perfect. I see some of these people on Instagram, that it's all like picture perfect. I have, 100,000 K months, and da da da. You never see any of the messy behind the scenes. It's all look at how amazing and perfect I am. And guess what? I don't trust them. Like, I just don't. Like, it's like, I don't know about that. I personally myself relate to someone who's transparent and who can tell me the real things. Yes, I've had success, but let me tell you what it was like getting there, you know?
It's so true. And that was the first glimpse that I had at storytelling when I
Hmm.
started my business. It was the same thing. I was just seeing all these people saying $10,000 months and everybody's doing it and it was just success everywhere and I felt so inadequate because I felt
Mm,
like I'm not there and this is
right,
really hard and why is it so hard for me but it's easy for
right.
everybody else. And then one day I saw somebody's post about the realness of it. And I think she
Mm,
also used like messy middle or muddy middle, some term like that. And I was like, oh my gosh, I felt so seen. I felt so um related to her and we really resonated. And immediately it's like, okay, I want to follow this person and see more of their journey. So
right.
you by being that vulnerable self, and it kind of goes back to what we said at the beginning, you actually really don't have to know the end of your story, and it doesn't have to be
Hmm.
this like polished thing before you share your story because of what we're sharing right now, that these types of stories are actually really relatable too. Just
Hmm.
remember, like, whatever your intention is for sharing the story, that's the thing that you want to make sure you're coming
Yeah.
from that very authentic place with it. But yeah, I agree. I think these are beautiful stories that really build that trust.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? I think what I want to like leave people with too, and I'll let you share your final thoughts, but have fun with it. Just take a deep breath and just relax and have fun with your stories. Like, have fun, like sharing who you are and use it as for me, I use it as a path to self expression and like stepping more powerfully like into myself. So any last, you know, things that you want to share about like stories that you just want the audience to walk away with?
I love what you just said. I'm going to just mirror that back, have fun with it. And while you're practicing, like practice, 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 find the platform that is fun for you. Don't care
Okay.
so much yet about, okay, I need to be on LinkedIn because that's where my people are. If you think Instagram is fun, go over to Instagram, get on your stories, and start sharing some fun stuff just for the sake of practice. You got to start somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And when you come from that energy of I am just doing this for fun, no matter where it is, LinkedIn,
Mm-hmm.
Instagram, wherever, it's going to resonate really, really nicely with the people that are meant to be in your vortex, is what I say. So
Right.
go with
Be-
it.
yep, because really it's all about the energy. Like
Yeah.
your energy comes through in your story. So if you're not having fun with it, then step back and ask yourself why, and work through whatever things that you need to work through to make it fun to share stories about
Yes.
your life.
I love it.
All right.
Perfect.
So thank you so much, Jessica, for being here today. I've really enjoyed talking to you, and I am positive that the audience will get a lot of value.
Thank you for having me. This was so much fun.
Yes.